Hi, Rob Kolanda, shop specialist at Front Range Anglers in Boulder, Colorado. And today I'm going to be tying the Diamond Lake Adult Midge. I'm going to tie the Diamond Lake Midge Adult. This is a good pattern once a chironomids get started. Probably the most popular time to fish chironomids is when those first big ones come off in May into June on most of our lakes here. If the conditions are right, the fish will get up on them and can provide some pretty good sight fishing opportunities sometimes to large fish in some of these reservoirs. And so this is a midge adult that will have a trailing shuck, and I'm going to tie it on a 103 BL. I'm going to use Vivas 60 knot, and this is kind of a I don't know what they call it, but kind of a tan or camel, I guess. Anyways, you wanna pick your thread color to kind of match what you're seeing naturally. These midges a lot of times will be anywhere from an olive to a gray to tans, and you wanna look at the underside too, because often that'll be different than what the top side of the midge is showing you. So I'm gonna start my thread. And the first thing we're going to put off the back is a trailing shuck. And I like a flank feather that's got heavy variegation on it. So this is pintail, which you can source a little bit now. But teal is a fantastic substitute, gadwall. Even mallard, but you'd want to pick some of the fibers that have a little more contrast to them, a little heavier markings. And I'm going to cut off right about 4 fibers here, and this is exactly 4. And I can measure this out. I want to make this a shank's length behind, so I'll measure it first. Sorry, I missed a step there. Bring your thread back to the end of the straight portion of the shank. Now again, to measure, I'll hold the fibers up, calculate how long I want those to be, come and grab them with the other hand, slide them back, tie them in up on top of the shank. And if you have not rolled over that shank, then the tail, or in this case the trailing shuck, should come straight off the rear end of the straight portion of the shank, which is what you want. You want this to sit flush with the rest of the body. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a darker CDC feather, and I like something with some good length to it. This is the Swiss CDC. This is their Super Select, and this is a color that they call dark gray, khaki, but a dun to a dark dun to a dark natural would actually work just fine for this, but I like it a little bit darker. I'm going to take 2 feathers here, grab them by the tips, turn them off the quill, and then I should end up with a little bunch of CDC about like so. And so I've got a bunch of isolated feathers now, or fibers that I've stripped off. And we don't have to worry about the tips being aligned. If there's anything really long, I'll kind of get those out of the way. But what we're going to do is I'm going to try to tie in just the smallest bunch of these right at the back end of the shank, with the tips extending towards that trailing shuck. So I'm going to tie it in so that some of those tips are part of that tail. Okay, like so. Now I'm going to leave this out the front for now. We're still going to use that. Actually, what I'm going to do, we got a step I'm going to wrap forward. Set down the poly here. So after I've got that tied in the back, I'm going to tie forward, give myself, an eye and a half, 2 eyes lengths behind the eye of the fly. Let that hang. And then I'm going to take white poly and probably have 8 to 10 fibers in total. And I'm going to tie this in on top of the shank, and then what I'm going to do is wrap backwards over it until I get to the end of the straight portion of the shank again. I'm going to take the CDC and I'm going to trap it at the same spot. Okay, so we have the tips of the CDC, we have the CDC wrap forward, tied in the poly, wrap back over that, pull the CDC back over the poly. Okay. Next thing I'm going to add in here is a little bit of microlon. I'm going to take 1 piece of dark brown microlon and I'm going to tie it in and get back to the end of the straight portion of the shank. And at this point, I've kind of determined that I'm going to tie a tan one based on the thread color. And I'm going to use some of the Renee Harrop professional dry dubbing. And we want to dub a thin little noodle. This is similar to a superfine or microfine dubbing. The key to this is not trying to put too much on and just nice long rolls. Make sure your dubbing kind of width is consistent. And then I'm going to build a body really cigar shaped without much of a taper. Forward to about a nice length behind the eye. And then I'm going to take the dark CDC, I'll pull it over. I'm going to lash it down. Trap it in at this point. We can worry about the front of that. I'll probably cut a little bit off, but I'll probably utilize that. I'm going to take the microlon next, and I'm going to take those 2 fibers, just twist them up. And I'm just going to try to be consistent in my spacing as I wrap forward. The microlon is nice because it's strong and it doesn't add any weight to the fly per se. If you were to do this with wire or even a heavier thread, it could soak up a little bit of water, but wire definitely would add just a little bit of weight to it. We don't want to do that if we don't need to. Alright, so what I'm going to do is there's just a couple have just a little piece of that quill itself on it, cut those off, and then I'm just going to force these back, just get them out of the way for now. Next thing I'm going to do is take the white poly, make sure that I grab all those fibers, and come right over the top. And once I have it kind of down, I can release the tension on this a little bit and bubble that back up. I could even go in there with the bodkin if I wanted to and pull that out and take my whip finisher and we can get it just bubbling over the back just a little bit and just make sure it's straight. this point, I'm going to take the same CDC I use for the tail, and I'm actually going to, if I've got some scraps, I'm just going to take it and roll that up into a dubbing. If I peel it off, I'm going to make sure I cut off any of those little knurls. And I want to work with fairly short length somewhere in here. And this isn't the easiest stuff to get to grab the hook, so sometimes licking your finger, a little bit of dubbing wax, something like that, but if you get it started, it'll usually grab itself. And the first thing I'm going to do is just volume-wise cover that up with CDC to form just a small thorax. And then probably the more important part is I like to, now that I have that base underneath it, is cut off the same length of fibers, a little bit shorter. And I'll try to do this on parts of a discarded feather that I can't use for anything else. What I'm going to do is actually just bite into a clump, bring the thread back, hold another clump of CDC up and over that thorax. I'm going to lash it down, and you can see what happens. You get a lot more legs coming out the side. Now at this point, we'll just bring the poly back over the top. Cut this off with just a little leg, and that's for us to see it more than anything. And I'm going to finish the fly behind the thorax. Discard anybody that's not playing well with the others. And I don't mind having the legs a little bit long. Coming out to the side, it's just going to offer a little more support for that fly. And I'll generally give it a trim underneath just to make sure it's flush. And that's your diamond leg midge adult.